Here's Surah 4, verse 157. It says, and, it's specifically talking about the Jews. It says, and for their saying, indeed we have killed the Messiah Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah. And they did not kill him, nor did they crucify him, but it was made to appear to them. And indeed, those who differ over it are in doubt about it, and they have no knowledge of it except the following of assumption. And they did not kill him for certain. Rather, Allah raised him to himself, and ever is Allah exalted in mighty and wise. But if we look at what historians actually say, it contradicts that completely. Here's an atheist New Testament scholar, Gerd Ludemann. He says Jesus' death as a consequence of crucifixion is indisputable. Liberal New Testament scholar Marcus Borg, the head of the Jesus, one of the key members of the Jesus Seminar, said the most certain fact about the historical Jesus is his execution as a political rebel. Here's Pinchas Lapid, a Jewish scholar. Jesus' death by crucifixion is historically certain. This is Paul Fredrickson. She's a convert to Judaism and a historical scholar. She says, the single most solid fact about Jesus' life is his death. He was executed by the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate in or around Passover in the manner Rome reserved particularly for political insurrectionists, namely crucifixion. And Bart Ehrman, one of the leading secular scholars who's a critic of New Testament Christianity, he says, one of the most certain facts of history is that Jesus was crucified on the order of the Roman prefect of Judea, Pontius Pilate. Now, we don't even have to go there. There was a study in March 21st, 1986, by the Journal of an American Medical Association, where they analyzed the evidence of what we see in the Bible of the crucifixion. And they came to this conclusion. Thus, it remains unsettled whether Jesus died of cardiac rupture or of cardiorespiratory failure. However, the important feature may be not how he died, but rather whether he died. Clearly, the weight of historical and medical evidence indicates that Jesus was dead before the wound to his side was inflicted, and supports the traditional view that the spear thrust between his right ribs probably perforated not only the right lung, but also the pericardium and heart, and thereby ensuring his death. So, some Muslims will cherry pick passages of the Bible to prove that, well, Jesus never died. Look at this thing, look at the other thing. And we can do that, but the fact is that that doesn't help our case. I could do that with the Quran. In chapter 19, it says, and peace is on me, this is Jesus speaking, the day I was born, the day I will die, and the day I am raised alive. Now I could pick that verse out of its context and say, look, the Quran is supporting the resurrection. The problem is, in its context, that is not what it's saying. It's easy to cherry pick verses. Let me just quickly go through some passages. Matthew 27, verse 50, it said that Jesus yielded up his spirit. Mark's biography, potentially the earliest, says Jesus breathed his last. In the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, it says likewise he breathed his last. And finally, John's biography says he gave up his spirit. So we have, not only that, but we have historical evidences. We have Greek writers, Thales, Lucian, Celsus, from around the time period. They all testify to Jesus' death. We have Roman writers, Tacitus, Pliny the Younger, Suetonius. They all testify to Jesus' death. And we have Jewish writings, such as the historian Josephus. We also have the Jewish Talmud and Mishnah sayings, Toldat Yeshua. And they all grant one thing, as I said before, that an itinerant Jewish preacher from the backwaters of first century Palestine was crucified and died under the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate. So we have the testimonies of non-Christian scholars, we have the testimonies of scientific modern medicine, we have biblical witnesses, and we have the ancient non-Christian sources, all testifying to the fact that an itinerant Jewish preacher named Jesus of Nazareth was crucified just as the Bible claims. Verses, I would argue, 40 Arabic words in the Quran, written 600 years after the fact, on a different continent, in a different language, by an illiterate individual who shows no proper interaction with the actual historical narratives or sources. What I would say in terms of my interaction with Muslims is that Jesus' death is the death of the truth claims of Islam, because all the evidence is against the Quran at that point. And if Jesus did die, and if the historical sources are accurate, like his disciples said, and he resurrected, then it means a serious thing for believing Muslims.